name is Jennifer Maneely, and I am the founder of this nonprofit, The Recovering Family. And we work with families that have loved ones with substance abuse issues. I, in particular, love to work with the dynamic of parent and child. So I love working with parents that have grown kids, because they're always going to be your kids, they're always going to be your child, but grown kids that they can be in their 20s, their 30s, 40s, 50s, even 60s. Yes, I have worked with parents that have 60-year-old kids. Yes, that is older than I am, but the substance abuse part of things can be really, really challenging for parents to really know how to navigate their relationship. And so that's what we work through is that family system, those family dynamics, and how to make decisions around someone that does have substance abuse because we don't inherently know necessarily how to deal with someone that has a substance abuse issue. It's a very complex, what I'll call a disease, but it's a very complex dynamics. We're looking at a lot of different kinds of behaviors that you may not be familiar with, especially when it comes to the mental health aspect of addiction. We want to look at that. I wanted to do this video because I firmly believe, and this is something that I teach, is that people do better when they know what to expect. Expectations are crucial, and being clear about those expectations, being clear about what it is that you want, what you're okay with, what you're not okay with, and then verbalizing that to someone else, it is crucial in this context. So I wanted to do a video that allows you to know what you can expect when you're working with me. So one of the first things that you can expect when you're working with me is that we're going to walk through a framework that I don't want to say developed, but I have been able to put a framework together based on how I've learned how to structure my own life when it comes to dealing with people that have substance abuse issues. And I want to give you a little bit of a background as to why this is really important, especially like what my background is the first and foremost is that I have lived experience with substance abuse, meaning in my early 20s, I had a substance abuse issue, right? I was navigating through this with my own family as the kid in the situation. Now, you wouldn't know it to look at me and to listen to me now, today, but I was at one point shooting heroin and cocaine and running from drug dealers and doing all sorts of really craziness. Now, this was in my early 20s. I was out of the house, and my mom was a high executive at a large bank. My family, and this is just my upbringing, but my family, we didn't see a whole lot of drug abuse in the family. This wasn't something that like I grew up with. I didn't witness any of these things. And so it felt a little weird for all of us to have this happen because my family and myself did not have any knowledge of how to manage this and how, like, what were you supposed to do? I didn't know anything about it either. And so I certainly didn't know anything about recovery. I certainly didn't know anything about this culture, this world. And that definitely goes for my family, in particular, my mom. She was just trying to live her best life in her career. And then every now and then I'd throw a monkey wrench in her plan. And she had to end up dealing with something that I had created. And it just was a constant thing over and over and over again. I just wasn't following the traditional path that my mom and my family had followed for themselves and wanted me to follow in their footsteps as well. That just wasn't something that was in the cards for us. And so navigating that was really, really challenging. Eventually, my mom did get help for herself, and that was a crucial turning point for me. Now, within that, I had to make a lot of decisions for myself. I had to work on myself. She created a foundation, a platform for me to make those decisions. but I had to make them for me. And this is where you can expect me never to make a promise on outcomes. And I hate that, but nobody can. Like, if anybody is promising outcomes, then I would not trust that person, because nobody can make any outcome basis, because this is really complex and we're dealing with mental health, and it's really hard to navigate that. So I can't make any outcome promises any more than anybody else can. I can say, though, that we're going to give you the best chance to be the person and to be that family member that you need to be in order to support them in the best way possible. That if they do have a chance, if they have any chance at all, that you can help them in influence, but you can't make them do anything. But that's the strategic framework that I was talking about, is I'm going to help you figure out how to make the best decisions possible for your loved one, and so that you can be the person that you need to be. And that when the chaos is happening and when the destruction is happening and you don't know where to go, you will now have a framework to run decisions through, so that it's not clouded through fear, and it's not clouded through chaos, and it's not clouded in, oh my God, I don't know what to do, and I don't know what the other side is going to be. I don't know if I'm helping. I don't know if I'm hurting. We're just going to have a framework that kind of guides you, that gives you some guardrails on how to best approach decision making. So that's something that you can expect, is to learn a framework, so that even if, a year from now, if you're not working with me anymore, but something happens with your loved one, you still have been in practice of using this framework and can run decisions through them in the most effective way possible. Now, that being said, since we're looking at patterns and we're looking at behaviors and we're looking at your dynamics and we're looking at your patterns and their patterns, and we're going to try to break some of those patterns, that also means that that takes time. This is not an overnight process. No one can do this quickly. This is going to be a journey. This is a marathon. This is not a sprint. We can do a lot quickly, but we can't do everything quickly, because that's just not, we're human. And when we're looking at changing patterns and we're looking at changing mindsets, then those things are just simply going to take a while. So when I say a while, I'm looking at the people that do the best work with me for at least 6 months, a preference of a year or longer. And I know that sounds like a long time, but to be honest, when you really think about it and you look at it, you are going to be dealing with this, and you have been dealing with this for a long time already. This is a relatively short stop along the way that's going to give you the skills and the tools that you need in order to learn how to deal with someone that has substance abuse issues, because this is not something we inherently know how to do. Mental health issues, substance abuse, all of those things is learned skills. And at some point along the way, you need to learn them. And I approach this from an angle of being your kid. If you're a parent and you're watching this, I approach this from the angle of kind of being your kid and how to help you start communicating better and more effectively to your loved one through the lens of what I know that I was experiencing, what I hear a lot because I've been in recovery for a very long time. I have 19 years in recovery, completely clean. I have met a lot of people in recovery. I understand the mindsets. I understand what's going on. I understand how people interpret things from what they have heard, and how that can be interpreted. And so I want to help you learn how to communicate better with your loved one so that they can actually hear you. And how are they going to perceive the conversations? Now, sometimes people are just going to get mad because we're starting to change patterns. We're starting to change behaviors for ourselves. And those kinds of changes, especially when they're not going to be able to get what they want anymore, they're going to throw a little bit of a hissy fit. And we're going to navigate those hissy fits and those temper tantrums together effectively. And I think it's better that you know that it's coming so you know how to prepare yourself and you don't have to be insecure about worrying about, did I do the wrong thing because they're angry? The answer is no. So sometimes things might get a little bit messier before they start getting better because we're going to be changing the system. We're going to be changing the framework. And within that change can be uncomfortable and it can look very different and be a little messy. So you can expect a little bit of that in the upfront, but I'm here to help guide you through that and remind you that you're doing the right things. And sometimes that's all family members really need is just to hear and get permission for doing what they know is the right thing to do. And so you will also be able to get some freedom in taking that permission for yourself to do these things, and you can feel better about some of the decisions that you're going to have to make because these are some tough decisions to have to make, and it doesn't feel good. We expect that good decisions are going to feel good, and that's not always how it works out. And sometimes that feelings of feeling bad can cloud our judgment and make us insecure in thinking that we must have made a bad decision. But that's not always how that works in this context. Something else that you can expect from me is that level of accountability of you say that you want something and I'm going to hold you accountable to those kinds of things. It can also, you're going to have accountability in having this framework that we're going to work through and that you know that you have to make a decision. And then it's okay. I'm not here to tell anybody necessarily how to parent their kid because I don't think that this is a parenting situation anymore. I'm not going to tell anybody what to do necessarily, but I am going to provide guardrails that create safety within decisions because I think that the safety is incredibly important. And so within that, we create safety plans. So if something is happening or chaos is happening, we want to have safety plans. So just because things are happening around you that are chaotic, that does not mean that you have to also be chaotic. You can be responsive in a chaotic situation. And that's what we want is when chaos ensues, we want to be calm, we want to be grounded in our decision making, and we want to have a plan of action based on the things. And that's something that I can do very effectively just because I know a lot of scenarios. Again, I've been around this for a very long time. I cannot guess exactly and predict exactly what's going to happen in the future, but I've gotten pretty good at getting it pretty close into predicting what's going to happen and how people are going to behave and what you can expect from them, that we can create plans around that. We can create plans around scenarios and hypotheticals around, okay, if this happens, this is how we're going to do it. If this happens, this is what we're going to do. So that you have a plan, you have a course of action to take so that you don't have to be floundering out there going, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to manage these situations. You will already know. And if you don't know, then you have access to me to just call up at any time to say, I have this situation. What should I do? And that's something that I provide as well, is an open line of communication that if something is happening, you have somewhere to go to ask questions that you may not have answers to. And sometimes you have the answers. This happens far more times. You have the answer, you know what you need to do. And sometimes you just need a sounding board to say, yes, that is correct. You do need to do that because it can be really uncomfortable. Again, so you're getting guidance. You're also getting the skills that you need to make the best possible choice for your loved one and for yourself because we cannot take ourselves out of the equations. We matter as caretakers, and that's what you've essentially become is the caretaker. As caretakers, you matter, and it's important to remember that you do matter and that your life is important. We cannot just sit around and wait for the next shoe to drop. We have to go off and live our own lives, and it is important. I cannot stress this enough. It is important that you learn how to live your life. And that can take some time and it can take some conversations on what does that mean for you. But that's part of the framework that we go into is how do you live your own life because it's a balance. How do you both live your own life and not let the fear constantly creep in for you? Now, I can't take away the fear. I truly can't. I can only provide guardrails and skills and tools for you on how to make decisions and what the decisions can look like and how to verbalize those decisions effectively in the face of fear. There's sometimes I cannot take away the feelings that you don't want to feel, but I can help navigate you through those feelings, right? And so that is really what you can expect. You can expect that it's going to take a little bit of time for us to work together. It's going to take a framework, and that kind of just gives you guardrails. It's going to take some willingness on your part to make some necessary changes. And what you will see is a different relationship. I don't know what that relationship right now is going to look like, but it is going to be different. And oftentimes that different is a better relationship. Even if the outcomes aren't exactly following what you want, it's going to be better. We're going to create a different, better, healthier relationship where you don't feel like you have to turn your life. And because it's a nonprofit, I definitely make all of the services very affordable, taking into account that we're going to be working together for a long time to make this happen. I work within what people can afford. So don't worry about the pricing. Just worry about the help that you need. Now, I hope this was really helpful to kind of lay out those expectations for you. And I am so excited to start working with you.